mubyeyi urifuza guteganyiriza umwana wawe ejo heza, gana mu mashuri ya apejerwa ariyo Lycée de Ruhango-IKIREZI hamwe na Emeru Intwari. Muri Lycée de Ruhango-IKIREZI tubafitiye amashami akurikira: Culinary Art cyangwa se ibijyanye n'ubutetsi, hari level 1, level 3, level 4 ndetse na level 5. Food and Beverage Services tubafitiye level 3, level 4 ndetse na level 5. Tubafitiye kandi Accounting cyangwa se ibaruramari level 3, level 4 ndetse na level 5. Tubafitiye n'ubukanishi bw'amamodoka mu byiciro bikurikira: Auto Engine Technology level 3, Auto Transmission and Control System Technology level 4, Automobile Transmission and Control System Technology level 5. Tubafitiye n'ubwubatsi Masonry level ya 3, level ya 4 ndetse na level ya 5. Tubafitiye Tourism ubukerarugendo level ya 3, iya 4 ndetse n'iya 5. Turabibutsa ko tubafitiye n'icyiciro rusange Tonkome. Naho muri Emeru Intwari tubafitiye amashami y'umwaka umwe akurikira: Automotive Technology ubukanishi bw'amamodoka level ya mbere, Hairdressing ubwiza no gutunganya umusatsi level ya mbere, Tailoring ubudozi level ya mbere, Masonry ubwubatsi level ya mbere. Muri aya mashuri yombi tubafitiye abarimu b'inzobere harimo n'abaturuka hanze y'igihugu. Tubafitiye kandi n'amacumbi y'abakobwa ndetse n'ay'abahungu. Abanyeshuri bacu bakora ingendo shuri mu gihugu ndetse no hanze yacu. Tubaha umwanya wo kwimenyereza umwuga mu bigo bijyanye n'ibyo biga. Dukorera kandi graduation abanyeshuri basoje amasomo yabo. Aya mashuri aherereye mu mujyi wa Ruhango hafi ya gare. Ku bindi bisobanuro mwaduhamagara kuri 0788366219 cyangwa se 0722356668. Mwanaduhamagara kandi kuri 0788366213 cyangwa se 0788202285. Mwanadusura kuri website y'ishuri www.apejerwa.ac.rw. Umurimo ukozwe neza utuma batugirira icyizere.
Welcome in Lycée de Ruhango-IKIREZI. My name is Chimimana Fabien, a teacher in Automotive Transmission and Control Technology. So, we are going to study manual gearbox. The topic of today is identify manual gearbox. So, the objective of the session, at the end of this session, Eliana will be able to describe the operating principle of gears. It also identify the manual gearbox parts and their function. It also introduce the purpose of gearbox, and it should be able to disassemble the manual gearbox. The gearbox is the second stage after the clutch system in order to transmit the driving torque from the engine to the drive wheel. In modern vehicles or modern car, we have 4 or 5 speed and 1 reverse and also neutral position. As we studied in drive training maintenance, the gearbox is a very essential part in automotive system because it is the one part that can transfer the engine torque to the drive wheel. When you have rear wheel drive or front wheel drive, we shall have the gearbox which is transversal or longitudinal, depending on the drive of used vehicles. So it also converts the engine speed, and also the manual gearbox, it facilitates the vehicle for moving backward. The gearbox, it also helps us for idling position. So for better understanding the function of the gearbox, let's jump on the gear ratios. The gear ratio is the number of turns a driver gear shall turn in order to complete the 1 revolution of driving gears. Let's see how that works for that bike you have there. As you see here, we have this modern bike that you have many gears there which are have different size. That gear are on different size because it is also needed for changing or selecting the gear for at downhill. We need the torque which are different for upper hill. So the gearbox, I have told that it also needed for transmitting the driving torque from the engine to the drive wheel. As you see here, when we have the driving force on that pedal, without this chain, how the power will be transmitted to the drive wheel. We have turning force on that pedal, but we don't have the turning force on that drive wheel. When you have this chain, we shall which shall connect the driving torque for this pedal and this chain, which is and also this gear, which connected to the drive wheel. So what I have told above, I'm told you the gear ratios. So as you see here, we have, let this be driver gear and this be driving gears. So as we see, when we have the turning force from the engine on this shaft, this gear is turning, and also it meshes with that driving gears. So, and this also must turn. When this turn, we see that this gear is very, very similar compared to this gear. So this gear shall turn 2 times when this gear turn once. It's the reason why I'm telling you that is the gear ratio is the number of turn this driver gear shall turn to complete 1 revolution of this driving gear. So when reverse that, when you have the torque from the engine and you want to increase the revolution of the driving wheel. So as we reverse this sketch, we see that this shall be driver and this gear shall be driving. So when this is driving, is a driver, so it shall see that it can turn 1 revolution when this driving gear turn 2 times. So as we need to increase the revolution. So when you have 2 revolution per minute on this gear, here we have 4 revolution. As we understood, we have this shall 2 revolution from the engine and also shall be meet with driving wheel, and on the drive wheel we have 2 revolution. So when this is driving and this is the driver, we see that here we have 2 revolution. Then here we have 1/2 revolution. So when you have 1/2 revolution, we understood well that the speed shall be reduced. So when we reverse this sketch, so we have the driving speed here and driving speed here. So this driving speed, it shall be at the drive wheel. When you have 100 revolution on the driving gear here, we shall have 200 revolution on that gear. We understand very well that the revolution and the speed shall increase. So the gearbox have many components. So let's start on the the clutch disc. The clutch disc is this one. This clutch disc is used to transmit the power from the engine or the turning power from the engine to the manual gearbox. We have also the clutch pedal. It helps us to disengage and engage the power from the engine to the gearbox. We also have the synchronizer. Synchronizer, it helps us to engage or to select or to be meshed, the gear to be meshed in order to not be back or to help us to select the required gears. We also have gears. As we see here, we have many gears for different size. The gear, it helps us to select the required gear ratio or the required speed for wanted or any needed speed for driving wheel. The selector sleeve is this part. As we see inside of this part, we have the teeth. So we also have this synchro mesh body that is required for many parts. We have here, we have hub, we have selector sleeve, we have here the blocking ring, and we have also the meshing gears. Shifty linkage is the part of the rod which connects the driver shifty lever with the clutch fork in the gearbox. We have also input shaft. That shaft, it helps the turning force from the engine to be entered in this gearbox to turn the gears inside that gearbox. We also have output shaft. It connects the driving torque from the gearbox to the drive wheel. We also have shifty lever, is that one. Up on that shifty lever, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. As your gearbox have different many gear you want to select. So this selector lever, it helps the driver to select the wanted gear. If it is first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, or reverse, it's this one help the driver to select the needed gear. We have also idler gear. It is needed for reversing. It's a gear which is required for only reversing. For motorcycle, we don't need reversing direction. That's why idle gear is not required. Output shaft is the shaft about which it can transfer the power or the turning force from the gearbox to the drive wheel. Let's go on the operating principle of manual gearbox. As we see here, we have selector lever, we have the shifting linkage, we have the clutch fork, we have sliding sleeve here. As you see, we have many gears, we have counter shaft, we have input shaft, and also we have output shaft. When you are going to select one of the gear, you shall see that all of the gear here, it is on different size. So we have the smaller gear here, which are going to drive the larger gear here in order to turn the output shaft. As we see, the input shaft have the turning force that entered in this gear and also turn these counter shaft gears. But the gear on the output shaft are free to move, are not locked on the shaft. What we are going to need when you are going to engage the gear is to lock the gear of the output shaft on their shaft. So let's start on the first gear. As we see, this gear is very, very smaller than the larger gear upper on the output shaft. As we understood well, we studied well in drivetrain, as the smaller gear drive larger gear, we have more torque but speed reduced. So for the power flow of the first gear, it must be like that. Here, turn in the counter shaft, and flow in that gear, be in that larger gear, flow to the output shaft as this shaft turning. For the second gear, we move also this selector fork to the backward side. We have also the power from this input shaft into in this gear for this input shaft to the counter shaft, and flow in that gear for the counter shaft to the meshing gear for the output shaft to flow out. As we see for 3 and 4 gears, for third gear, we have to be this power from the input shaft to the gear for input shaft and to the counter shaft, flow also to this gear out of that output shaft. For the fourth gear, as you studied in drivetrain, we know that we have direct drive. What you call direct drive? The direct drive is when the turning force from the engine enters into the gearbox and flow out without passing anywhere or without changing. So what am I talking is that the direct drive is when the turning force or the revolution from the engine is the revolution we found on the drive wheel or on the output shaft. So the power flow enter in this input shaft. Here we have to select to use this sliding sleeve into animation with this gear. Here we have the power enter in the input shaft and flow directly out in the output shaft. Let us go in on reverse direction. When you want to reverse the vehicle, we have 3 shafts. We have input shaft, we have counter shaft, we have idle shaft, and also you have output shaft. The idle shaft here, we have also idle gear. We have 3 gears. That idle gear is here to change the direction of the vehicle moving forward to reverse or to move backward. So for reversing, the power from the input shaft enter in this gear for input shaft enter into the output shaft to this idle gear, and also in that counter shaft to the gear for the output shaft, flow to the output shaft that connect the power of the engine to the gearbox, also to the drive wheel. So for better understanding the operation of manual gearbox, let us see the video of how it works. Here we have engine, we have clutch, we have gearbox, and also differential. As we see here, we have the operation that are done in the engine. Here we have the piston moving up and down. Here we have the crankshaft for translating the reciprocating motion into rotary motion that's sent in the flywheel. The flywheel is attached on the clutch. As we see the clutch, the driving disc of the clutch, to transfer the power from the engine by the input shaft to the gearbox. As we see here, we have the clutch pedal. When the clutch pedal is depressed, here we have the power from the engine is interrupted. As we see, there is no turning force entered in the gearbox. The rotating motion is reached only at the drive and the flywheel. As we remove the foot on the pedal, we see that the power from the engine is entering in the gearbox for turning the gears inside the gearbox. As we see in the gearbox, you have the gears with red color are the gears on the counter shaft. The blue color are the gears on the output shaft. As we see, all of the gears are rotating fully without turning the output shaft or the main shaft. As we see also, the sliding dog or dog clutch are not moving, are not meshed with any gears. So that's why all the gears are in neutral position. There is no gear which are engaged. So for here we see that this silver color is for output shaft. As we see that the dog clutch shall move back and forward for transmitting or for meshing the gear you want to select. As we see that the selector sleeve or dog clutch is moved by the selector lever as the driver moves for selecting each gear you need. So this gearbox has the required speed, which are respectively 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the power flow of the first gear. We see that the turning force from the engine is passing to the gears for the counter shaft to the first gear to the output shaft to turn the drive wheel. So for the second gear, we see that the sliding dog is moved backward. As we see, the power flow is turning from the gear to the counter shaft to the second gear for turning the speed for the output shaft. For the third gear, we see that we are going to use the other sliding dog for moving at one side. So for the third gear to turn the output shaft. For the fourth gear, we see that we move at the right side for the counter shaft to the output shaft. For fifth gear, we use third shift dog, which is attached to the crank to the shifting linkage free. As we see, this output torque is moved to the drive wheel. For also the reverse, we have the red color with counter shaft and the yellow color for reverse or idle gear and the blue color for reverse gear. As we see, the power is entering in the red color to the yellow color to the blue color for reversing. As we see, the turning force is transferred to the output shaft to the differential. The differential here is also needed for dividing the power into 2 times as we have 2 shafts of the wheel. We are going to do what you call the disassembling of manual gearbox by selecting each tools we can use for disassembling manual gearbox. Here we have a toolbox that has many of the spanners we need. And socket, here we have the spanners, we have the socket, we have hammer, and also the screwdriver here. So, when you are going to disassemble a manual gearbox, we shall look on the size of the bolt that are on the housing of the gearbox. So let's start on the disassembling of manual gearbox. Okay, we are going to unlock the bolt from this bay housing. So after removing all those nuts, we are going to remove this bell housing. as we see inside of this gearbox is only used for transaxle. When you say transaxle, is when the gearbox it is contain the differential of this gearbox in order to transmit the power from the output shaft of the gearbox to the drive wheel. As we see here, this side, one side is attached on where there is a shaft transmitting the rotating power to the drive wheel. This manual gearbox is only used for the vehicle with front engine or front wheel drive. As we know, we have front wheel drive and rear wheel drive and also all wheel drive as we are learned in drivetrain maintenance. So as we see inside of this gearbox, you have also the different gears for different also size. We have also shifting shaft. It helps us also to move backward and forward the selector sleeve of the selector shaft. As we see on that shaft I have, this gear, we see that it is rotating fully on that shaft. When we are going to engage the gear, we need to take the rotating power from this gear into this shaft. We see that this gear is rotating fully. But when you move this slide sleeve, in order to be measured in this gear teeth, we can see what happened. As we see, we never turn this gear fully on that shaft. We see that the rotating power from this gear is also in that shaft as we see on that shaft. So, as we see inside of this gearbox, we have also, when we are shifting one gear by using the sector fork we have here, we see that when this shaft is rotating from the power of the engine, it will also turn the gear of this on the counter shaft for this shaft to be rotated. Here we have also this differential. This differential is required for transferring the power from this gearbox to the drive wheel. As we see, this shaft in this gearbox is rotating. Is this differential also turn the power from the gearbox to the drive wheel? As we see here, all the shaft and the differential also is turning. So, in manual gearbox, we have also 3 stages. We have engagement of gear, and also we have neutral position, and also we have reverse direction. So when we are in neutral position, there is no power are transferred to the drive wheel. So we are going to put this selector sleeve in the middle where it don't touch on the hub and also in these engaging gears. So as we see, when these sliding sleeves are in the middle, this gear also will turn fully on the shaft. So when you are going to shift this gear, we shall move this sliding sleeve forward or backward in order to select the gear you need. After starting this session, I really know that we are able to describe the operating principle of this gearbox. We will also show each part of gearbox and their function. We shall state it, and we also introduce someone else to how can use manual gearbox in daily life. So my name is Fabien Chimimana. If there is anything which I not understood, we shall contact me on 07821 24 054. Thank you for your kind attention.
Mubyeyi urifuza guteganyiriza umwana wawe ejo heza, gana mu mashuri ya apejerwa ariyo Lycée de Ruhango-IKIREZI hamwe na Emeru Intwari. Muri Lycée de Ruhango-IKIREZI tubafitiye amashami akurikira: Culinary Art cyangwa se ibijyanye n'ubutetsi, hari level 1, level 3, level 4 ndetse na level 5. Food and Beverage Services tubafitiye level 3, level 4 ndetse na level 5. Tubafitiye kandi accounting cyangwa se ibaruramari level 3, level 4 ndetse na level 5. Tubafitiye n'ubukanishi bw'amamodoka mu byiciro bikurikira: Auto Engine Technology level 3, Auto Transmission and Control System Technology level 4, Automobile Transmission and Control System Technology level 5. Tubafitiye n'ubwubatsi Masonry level ya 3, level ya 4 ndetse na level ya 5. Tubafitiye Tourism ubukerarugendo level ya 3, iya 4 ndetse n'iya 5. Turabibutsa ko tubafitiye n'icyiciro rusange Tonkome. Naho muri Emeru Intwari tubafitiye amashami y'umwaka umwe akurikira: Automotive Technology ubukanishi bw'amamodoka level ya mbere, Hairdressing ubwiza no gutunganya umusatsi level ya mbere, Tailoring ubudozi level ya mbere, Masonry ubwubatsi level ya mbere. Muri aya mashuri yombi tubafitiye abarimu b'inzobere harimo n'abaturuka hanze y'igihugu. Tubafitiye kandi n'amacumbi y'abakobwa ndetse n'ay'abahungu. Abanyeshuri bacu bakora ingendo shuri mu gihugu ndetse no hanze yacyo. Tubaha umwanya wo kwimenyereza umwuga mu bigo bijyanye n'ibyo biga. Dukorera kandi graduation abanyeshuri basoje amasomo yabo. Aya mashuri aherereye mu mujyi wa Ruhango hafi ya gare. Ku bindi bisobanuro mwaduhamagara kuri 0788366219 cyangwa se 0722356668. Mwanaduhamagara kandi kuri 0788366213 cyangwa se 0788202282. Mwanadusura kuri website y'ishuri www.apejerwa.ac.rw. Umurimo ukozwe neza utuma batugirira icyizere.